The roar of the crowd was not a sound Jacob Mercer had ever heard before, not on Earth, not even on the battlefield. It was layered, chaotic, a storm of alien voices mixing into something primal. Some hissed, some clicked, others let out shrill howls that rattled the arena walls. Billions of eyes, in person and across the galaxy, were watching the Council's latest entertainment. And he was the show. 2 guards shoved him through the gate. The light from above was blinding, 3 suns glaring against pale sand that glittered like ground glass. The air smelled of ozone, sweat, and old blood. His wrists were raw from chains, his uniform torn, but Jacob still stood straight. If the bastards wanted him broken, they'd have to work harder. The Council's herald, a long-necked creature with a voice that carried like thunder, lifted a staff. "Behold! A lesser species. Human. Primitive. Disposable. The arena will decide his worth." The crowd screamed for death. Jacob's gaze swept the killing field. Dozens of weapons had been scattered deliberately, jagged blades, hooked spears, even crude clubs. Farther ahead, gates in the walls trembled, something massive waiting behind them. He crouched, forcing his breathing steady, soldier's instincts grinding into motion. "Pick the shiny sword, charge, die fast," he muttered to himself. "That's what they want." Instead, he kicked sand over the blade nearest him and scanned for cover. A pile of broken stone pillars jutted from the floor like crooked teeth. He jogged for them, ignoring the jeers raining from above. The first gate opened with a metallic crash. A reptilian warrior bounded out, scales glinting green and black. It towered over him, muscles coiled, eyes bright with hunger. The crowd cheered louder. "Great! Space lizard with a bad attitude," Jacob whispered, fingers brushing the tag around his neck. Cool metal. Familiar weight. It steadied him. The creature snarled, lunged. Jacob sidestepped, grabbed a splintered spear half from the sand, and drove it across the alien's legs. The reptile stumbled, momentum carrying it into the stone. Jacob didn't hesitate. He swung the haft like a club into its throat. A wet crack, then silence. The alien collapsed, twitching once before lying still. The crowd gasped, then howled again, some furious, some thrilled. Jacob bent, retrieved a jagged knife from the sand, and, most importantly, picked up the dog tag that had slipped free from his collar during the scuffle. He clenched it in his fist, breathing hard. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. Above, Counselor Savarn leaned forward in his crystalline chair. His chitin shimmered under the arena lights, mandibles twitching. "Accident," he hissed to the others. "An animal got lucky." But not everyone agreed. A feathered counselor beside him tilted her head. "Luck does not retrieve weapons, nor recover fallen charms with such care. That was intent." Savarn ignored her. "Watch. He will fail soon enough." Another gate burst open. 2 more challengers sprinted into the arena, weapons raised, a hulking brute with 4 arms and a wiry insectoid with serrated claws. Jacob's grip tightened on his knife. 2 against 1. "Fair," he said under his breath. The brute charged first, all muscle and rage. Jacob dove sideways, letting the alien's weight crash into sand. The insectoid came next, quick and slicing. Jacob barely blocked with the knife, sparks flying as claw met steel. Pain lanced across his arm where another strike grazed him. He didn't back away. Instead, he shoved into the insectoid's chest, twisting until his blade pierced between plates. The creature shrieked, fell twitching. The brute recovered, bellowing, swinging fists like hammers. Jacob retreated toward the stone pillars, forcing the alien to funnel through the narrow gap. The brute charged blindly, and Jacob rammed the broken spear haft upward, straight through its throat. The alien dropped with a gurgling roar. Silence hung for a heartbeat. Then the arena erupted, some furious, others ecstatic. A chant started somewhere high in the tiers. He couldn't tell the language, but he knew the rhythm: respect. Jake spat blood onto the sand and lifted his head toward the council seats. "That all you got?" His voice was raw but carried. The crowd shrieked in disbelief. A prisoner was mocking the council. Down in the shadowed tunnel, guards muttered uneasily. One, a scaled veteran of countless executions, whispered, "He fights with training. Discipline. Not like the others." In the council chamber, murmurs grew. A younger official leaned close to Seivarn. "Perhaps this human should be studied, not discarded. His persistence might prove valuable." Seivarn's mandibles clicked. "Persistence breaks with enough pressure. Let him fight again. The galaxy will watch him bleed." In the arena, Jacob wiped sweat and blood from his face. The knife trembled in his grip, but he still stood tall. He glanced at the tag in his palm, lips tightening. "Still with me, Captain," he whispered. The gate creaked behind him, warning of the next trial. He exhaled slowly, body screaming from exhaustion, but his eyes hardened. He'd been tossed to the wolves. Fine. He'd tear his way back out. The suns glared down, the crowd roared again, and Jacob Mercer, last of his squad, prisoner of the council, lifted his weapon and prepared to keep surviving. The cell was barely more than a hole carved into the arena's underbelly. Metal walls wept condensation, and the stink of old blood clung to the air. Jacob sat on the bench, back aching, knuckles swollen, every muscle burning. The council's healers had done nothing but dump a bucket of water over him before slamming the door. He rolled the dog tag between his fingers, the edges biting into his calloused skin. The sound of it, light metal clinking against chain, was the only familiar thing left in this alien nightmare. The gate clanged open. A figure entered, thin, cloaked, carrying a writing slate. Its eyes were enormous, pale, blinking without lids. A scribe. It spoke in a clicking accent, halting but clear. "The council allows interview. Records must be made. State your designation." "Sergeant Jacob Mercer," he muttered, not lifting his head. The scribe tilted its skull. "Explain the charm." It pointed to the tag. "Audience wonders why you clutch worthless scrap." Jacob closed his fist around it. "It isn't worthless. Then what purpose?" He met the alien's gaze. His voice stayed even. "It's a reminder. Of someone I fought beside. Someone who didn't walk out." The scribe tapped notes onto the slate. "So, ritual. Superstition." "No," Jacob snapped. Then softer. "It's loyalty. It means I don't forget the dead. It means I don't quit." The alien paused, uncertain. For the first time, its writing slowed. "The council will not understand. They think survival is singular." Jacob leaned forward, voice low. "That's their mistake. We don't fight alone. Even if we're the last one standing." The scribe hesitated as if weighing whether to report his words verbatim. At last, it bowed its thin neck and left. The next round came sooner than expected. Chains dragged him back into sunlight, his wounds only half closed. The roar of the crowd shook the arena again, but this time the energy was different. Less laughter, more tension. Some were here to watch him die. Others had come to see if he could possibly win again. 4 gates slammed open at once. 4 opponents this time, each different. A hulking beast with tusks jutting past its jaw. A lithe avian with razor talons. A serpentine fighter wielding a trident. And a hulking insectoid, taller than the rest, armored in glistening plates. Jacob exhaled once. "All right then. Let's dance." They came together in a storm. He didn't try to overpower. He moved, dodged, let them collide with one another. The tusked brute swung wide, nearly smashing the avian's wing. The serpent stabbed, missing him but gouging the insectoid's leg. They snarled at each other. Jacob seized the chaos. He hurled sand into the serpent's eyes, slashed deep across its throat before it could blink clear. The crowd roared at the brutality. The avian lunged from above, talons out. Jacob rolled beneath it, stabbing upward as it passed, tearing a wing membrane. It crashed into the sand, screeching. Pain exploded across his back as the brute caught him with a glancing blow. Jacob staggered, ribs aching. He forced himself upright, knife still in hand. The insectid charged now, claws like scythes. He had seconds. He sprinted toward the broken pillars again, drawing them in. The brute followed, heavy-footed, too focused on crushing him. Jacob pivoted at the last second, and the insectid's charge rammed full force into its ally. Bone cracked, both collapsing in a tangled heap. Jacob finished it quickly. Blade to throat, strike to the eye, nothing wasted. When the last body fell, he dropped to one knee, chest heaving. Sweat ran in rivers down his neck. He touched the tag, pressing it to his lips once before tucking it back under his collar. Above, the crowd did not laugh. They cheered. Not all, but enough. A chant rose again, less mocking this time, more insistent. Who man? Who man? The council chamber buzzed with unease. Councilors argued, voices overlapping. This is dangerous. He inspires them. It is spectacle. Nothing more. Savarn struck the table with one crystalline claw. Fools! This human is not a symbol. He is an animal refusing to die. That is all. The more he fights, the more glorious his inevitable defeat. A younger counselor leaned forward. And if he does not fall? Already the crowds chant for him. Even the lesser castes whisper of him in the markets. Savarn's eyes burned. Then we will remind them. Hope is a disease. And I will cure it. Back in the cell, Jacob's hands shook as he rinsed blood from his skin. His body screamed with every breath, but his mind wouldn't let him rest. He sat again with the dog tag, thumb tracing the etched letters. Captain R. Hayes. His chest tightened. He remembered the Martian canyon, the ambush, plasma fire raining down. Hayes had gone back for the wounded while Jacob covered him. He hadn't made it out. His last words still echoed. Mercer, you don't leave your own behind. Ever. Jacob whispered into the empty cell. Didn't forget, Cap? Still carrying it. A faint shuffle outside made him glance up. One of the guards lingered, staring through the bars. Its scaled brow furrowed. You speak to dead? Jacob held the tag tighter. No. I speak for them. That's different. The guard said nothing more, but it didn't walk away quickly either. When sleep finally dragged him under, it was shallow, haunted. He dreamed of marching boots, laughter in the barracks, Hayes clapping his shoulder. He woke with fists clenched, heart hammering, but also sharper resolve. The council wanted a broken man. They were getting something else. Morning came with the shriek of metal gates. Chains rattled. He was dragged once more toward the light. The crowd was louder this time, a fever pitch of anticipation. They wanted to see if the human could keep defying death. Jacob lifted his head. Pain weighed on every step, but the tag rested cool against his chest. He touched it once, steadying himself, and muttered so only he could hear. Round 3. Let's make it count. The doors opened. Sunlight and sand awaited. The arena roared. Jacob walked out to meet it. The third march into the arena was different. Jacob felt it before the gates opened, the crowd's energy, the restless shuffle of guards, even the way the announcer's voice carried hesitation instead of scorn. The galaxy wasn't waiting for a death anymore. They were waiting for a climax. Chains unhooked, shoving him forward. His body ached from a dozen wounds, but his stance was still straight. He lifted his head to the suns and let the noise wash over him. Half the crowd roared for his fall. The other half shouted his name. Who man? Who man? It rattled the very stones. The announcer raised a clawed hand. For the final spectacle, the council releases the beast of Verax Prime. No warrior survives its wrath. The human will be erased. A gate thundered open. The creature that emerged silenced the arena for a heartbeat. 20 feet tall, armored hide glistening black, 6 legs digging furrows in the sand. Its maw split into rows of needle teeth, dripping acid. Spines rippled across its back like a living arsenal. Jacob swallowed once. Hell of a dog you've got there! The beast shrieked, shaking the walls. He sprinted, grabbing a discarded spear from the sand. No ceremony now, just survival. The monster lunged, claws tearing trenches where he'd stood a second earlier. He rolled, came up running again, mind working faster than his legs. Big. Heavy. Slow turning. Armor thick. Gaps at the joints. Eyes soft. The creature charged again. He ducked behind broken stone, baiting it closer. It slammed into the barrier, shattering it, but staggered as dust blinded its forward eyes. Jacob hurled his spear, useless against the plates, but enough to stick in the joint of one leg. The beast shrieked, limping slightly. The crowd gasped. Above, Counselor Savarn gripped his chair hard enough to crack the crystal. "Finish him!" The beast obeyed, fury boiling. It pounded after Jacob, spines launching from its back like missiles. One grazed his shoulder, tearing flesh. Another slammed into stone inches from his skull. He kept moving, lungs burning, refusing to fall. At the far wall he turned, weaponless, chest heaving. The beast bore down, unstoppable. Jacob touched the dog tag. His thumb pressed hard into the etched letters. He whispered, "With me, Captain." And then he ran forward. The crowd screamed as he sprinted straight at the monster. At the last instant, he dove under its front legs, rolling through a gap where armor shifted. He came up beside its flank, ripped a jagged shard of stone from the sand, and drove it deep into the softer joint at its shoulder. Acid sprayed, burning his arm, but he didn't stop. The beast convulsed, screaming. Jacob clung to its side, climbed up onto its back like scaling a collapsing building. His muscles trembled, wounds screaming, but he hauled himself higher until he reached the ridge of its neck. The crowd's noise became one long roar. He yanked the spear free from its leg, raised it above his head, and with a roar that ripped his throat raw, plunged it down through the base of the creature's skull. The beast shuddered once. Then it collapsed, shaking the entire arena. Dust and silence followed. Jacob slid down, landing hard on his knees. His vision swam, but he forced himself up. Blood poured from his arm, his side, his ribs screaming, but he stood. He reached for the dog tag, held it high. The sun caught its silver surface, flashing across the arena like a beacon. The silence broke. The arena erupted. Not in mockery, not in jeers, but in thunderous chants. "Who man? Who man?" It wasn't just sound. It was rebellion. In the council chamber, chaos broke out. "He cannot be allowed to live!" one shouted. "He is no longer spectacle. He is symbol," another hissed. Savarn's mandibles rattled with fury. "Silence! The human dies now. Order the guards." But the younger counselor cut in, voice sharp. "Order them, and you will silence half the crowd who now cheers him. Do you want riots in the lower sectors? Do you want 1,000 worlds chanting his name?" The chamber fell into tense silence. Savarn stared down at the blood-soaked figure in the sand, the human still holding that piece of metal like it outweighed the beast's corpse. He hissed low. "One man. One charm. Already you poison order." Guards dragged Jacob back to his cell. He barely felt the chains, barely heard the lock slam. Every nerve was on fire. Yet his lips curled into a faint, bloody grin. The scribe returned, slate trembling in its thin hands. "You survived." "Impossible." Jacob leaned back against the wall, dog tag clutched in his fist. "Not impossible. Just human." The scribe's pale eyes widened. "The crowds, they cheer you. Even guards whisper. You have become—" It hesitated. "A story?" Jacob coughed out a dry laugh. "Then make sure you write it right." That night, he couldn't sleep. Pain racked his body, but adrenaline kept his mind clear. He turned the dog tag over and over, thumb rubbing grooves into the metal. Hayes's name gleamed faintly in the dim light. He whispered into the silence. "We made it through." "Not done yet, Cap." "But we're not done." From the corridor outside, he heard voices. Guards murmuring in their own tongue. He caught one phrase repeated, uncertain, almost reverent. "Who man?" In the council chamber, Savarn stood alone before the wide window overlooking the arena floor. The beast's corpse still lay there, blood soaking the sand. His reflection glared back at him in the glass. He should have died, he muttered. One human. One tag. And already the galaxy stirs. This cannot stand. Behind him, the younger counselor spoke softly. Perhaps it is not he who must break. Perhaps it is us who must change. Savarn's claws clicked together. No. He will be crushed. His spirit burned from memory. Humanity will learn its place. But even as he said it, the chant still echoed faintly from the city streets below. Jacob sat in his cell, leaning against the wall, blood drying on his skin. Exhaustion pressed heavy, but beneath it burned something sharper. They had thrown him into the wolves' den. He'd fought. He'd survived. And now, whether the council liked it or not, he had become something bigger. The dog tag glinted in the dim light. He closed his hand over it and let a slow smile cross his face. They wanted a show, he whispered. Instead, they lit a fire.